Hey everyone, it's Devin Francis, also known as Dr. Blackguard.
And I know a thing or two about liberals.
And you're watching episode 220 of the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast. What are we talking about today?
Top 10 cold opens? Frick. Wait. I think so. Make sure you show this to Alex later, Devin.
Oh, don't worry about that one. What are we talking about today, Victoria?
Knox on Love and
results may vary. As we said last time, due to
results may vary.
Trying to get episodes out every week, and then Victoria's also going to be gone for a little bit, and so we're putting this one out so that next week we can put out the episodes 3 and 4 of album 73. It'll probably be a little late just because you'll still be gone until until the day episode 5 comes out. So we'll figure that out. But the point is, we're doing this one, and then the next 2 episodes are going to be the rest of album 73. So, Knox on Love, episode 938. We're really getting up there to 1,000. It's written by Phil Waller. What happens in this episode, Victoria?
Right. So in this episode, it's kind of like a BTV equivalent sort of thing. That I'm assuming this is going to be what replaces BTV.
That's exactly what I said at the start too. Yeah. Where it's like, here's the title, and we're going to insert theme word into it. And there's already, when this happened, they confirmed that literally later this same year, there is going to be a Knox on Sacrifice episode.
Oh, okay. Wilson's going to kill Whit, finally. He's like, you've lived too long, John Avery. Okay, so unfortunately no Charlottes because it was just like a sketch episode. A lot like BTV.
I forgot that's what our prediction was.
A lot like BTV, this was canonically just straight up said to be the characters acting out the parts very clearly.
Yeah, he even says everyone at the end.
Yeah, I realized how often I get Zoe and... I mean, I've realized in the past, Zoe and Olivia's voices mixed up, especially when they're playing characters.
Well, now who's the misogynist, Victoria? I knew it was Zoe.
It's me! Wait, people won't know the joke from the last episode. No! Okay, go back to the last Oddcast episode. I called Devin a misogynist.
Oh wait, no, we did. Sorry, that isn't the next. This is the last one. So they've already seen that.
The last episode, the episode before this.
Yeah, they've already seen. I thought for a second you were saying, "Oh, that's a thing we recorded for the next episode." But I'm like, wait, no, that's not. Oh, thank goodness.
No, but still, if people watch this one without that one, they won't have context.
Who would do that? No one.
Whatever.
No one's who.
Devin and I are lovingly calling each other misogynists.
No, I never called you that until now.
No, that's what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So, there are 3 skits in this episode. So the first one is about a wife and a husband who are kind of having rocky marriage troubles. The wife goes to like a elder wise
sage,
person
a wizard,
like, their village. Asks for some relationship advice on how to like really stick it to her husband, just because he is kind of just like indifferent and uncaring. It feels like
hearing Will in it, I was like, oh
yeah, I felt that too.
And at the end of the web doc, they did like a 10-second, the world's shortest tribute at the end of it, where it was. I was like, oh, they're gonna do they'll do like a thing because it like showed a picture of Eugene and a picture of Will, and then music started, and it's like, hey, this is Eugene Meltzner. Welcome to Adventures in Odyssey, and it had his like birth and death year, and then it was over. I was like, oh, I thought there was going to be like a whole audio and picture montage, but it was just like 5 seconds long.
Maybe it was just like a dedicated. dedicating the web doc. Yeah.
No, I mean, it didn't say that, but it did make me wonder if this is the last episode where they had banked Eugene audio.
I don't know. I haven't listened to any of the other Odyssey episodes yet, so I can't say for sure or not about Will being in them or not. So the wife is something I appreciated. The sage, first thing he asked when the wife was like, I want to stop being with my husband, he's just like, has he been abusive to you in any way, shape, or form? In like physically, mentally, emotionally, or anything like that? And she was like, no. And I was just like, yeah! That made me happy.
I wrote a whole thing about that.
Yes. Yeah, because it was just, it was them being like, yeah, if your partner...
we need to check that.
Yeah, if your partner is hurting you, like, it's okay to not be with them anymore because you don't want to get hurt. But then she was just like, no, we're just not really clicking. Which also, I want to say, like, if things just really aren't clicking between you and your partner, first off, I was kind of surprised that she married this guy in the first place because it sounded like this was something that had been like that the whole time in their relationship. I don't know.
Maybe they were in Vegas and they were drunk. Who knows?
Maybe.
Maybe they were on 90 Day Fiancé.
I wish every series I liked just had like a What We Do in Vegas AIOO for them, or like fanfic. I'd love a Sakoku What We Do in Vegas AIOO. I was thinking about that last night.
I'm sure you were.
That's one of my favorite movies, but watching it back, it's like, ooh, lots of these jokes. Lots of these jokes. I don't know when the last time you saw it was. How many jokes do you remember? Do you remember a lot of jokes in it? Just being like...
Not particularly, but I could imagine.
There's so much joke stuff centered around homophobia in that movie, and I was like, I don't remember this. I was like, if you just ignore that, even though it's very hard and it makes me very uncomfortable.
So what happens in this episode,
anyway,
Victoria?
I was like, let me rewrite what happens in Vegas. Anyway, so in this episode, so that lady's doing that stuff. She is the talk with him, and he's like, okay, why don't you like just treat your husband really, really well? And then when he's like super happy, you divorce him. I was like, that's kind of funny. And then she treats him really well, and he's just like, comes out of his shell, and he's just like, I love you, wife. And she's like, oh, you talk. And then their relationship like blossoms, which this could happen with some people if you're really not connecting with your partner. And then I say as if I've ever been in a relationship. If you're not connecting with your partner and then you just like show them a lot of devotion and love, things might get fixed. The thing is, things also might not get fixed. It kind of, I feel like I can safely say it, oh, dad sneeze. I feel like I can safely say it depends on the person.
Yes, obviously.
So,
the broader theme here,
I mean, that's not going to work for everyone, but it obviously did in this case. Good for them. I say as if they're not. The
broader theme here, like, I really like it. Like, I could see what they're doing as soon as the sage gave his advice about how, you know, love is not just a feeling, it's also an action that you have to perform.
Bless you.
Thank you. It's love is not just a feeling, it's an action that you have to perform and do and engage in, and also that, like other things, you fake it till you make it, and then you do make it and you become it. That part of that is, you know, doing the work and embodying it will bring you to that place. And that's, you know, that's something we say about a lot of aspects of life, especially when it comes to faith, is like, you do, it's especially a big part of Jewish culture, emphasized more than Christian culture, of like, even if you're not feeling something, like you put in the work and God will like supply the heart to match, which is, you know, the more in-depth concept of fake it till you make it. And so I really like that they put that in here, because it is true. Whether or not the other person will like reciprocate and you can fix your relationship like that, you know. But in a general case with people, like, yes, you know, at the very least, regardless of what happens with the other person, you have fixed your heart in the process of going through the labor of loving the people around you, which is what is emphasized. That it's like, you didn't fix him, you fixed yourself, and then he fixed himself in return.
I feel like I've said this on the podcast before, but like, you can't fix people, especially in relationships. Never enter a relationship thinking, I can fix this person. I have a lot of opinions on that phrase. I know a lot of people like make jokes about like, I can fix so-and-so. I always like worse. The joke like, I can make them worse. Because I feel like that's easier to do than
you know what, Victoria? Someone. I think you just might be right.
Leave me alone. Piss off. Yeah. I don't know if I ever shared it with you. I feel like I probably did. I have like this thing I wrote once that I haven't really incorporated yet because I haven't gotten that far yet. But in ASU, where one of the characters is like, I think this other person I knew could have fixed me. And another person being like, oh, I don't think you should say that about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last time and most of the time we've spent talking about the concept of I can fix him on this podcast was surrounding unrelatable.
Yeah. Re-listening to that one like a little bit ago, a couple weeks ago, I was like, ooh, Mr. Toxic Mentality.
That was something I really liked about the episode, was listening to the first time and you think you're supposed to be sympathetic to him. Yeah. And so he's being all like, oh, you could have fixed me and stuff, basically, and you realize that's what he's saying.
It's so creepy.
And you're kind of like,
that episode.
Oh, you're like, oh, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't like that that's the message that they're pushing, and that then it sounds like they're trying to like make that a good thing. And then you realize like, oh, he's a sociopath. And they were playing it as a bad thing, which is good. And good job. I'm pleasantly surprised. What is the second part of the episode? What is the second?
So the second one, I kind of can't remember what the third one is. Maybe it'll come back to me.
The third one is a true story. The second one is Frank and Liesel.
I remember the second one very well. Okay. So there's this little girl. Her name is Liesel. And she loses her doll in a park. And then this kind elderly man starts trying to help her find the doll. They can't find it. She decides to come back the next day because he tells her that she should. She finds a letter on a park bench. It's basically detailing how her doll went on like a big adventure. Every day she comes back, there's more letters from the doll. She can't read. Frank teaches her how to read. They grow closer. And then one day, her doll comes back. It looks completely different, and the note basically says, like, I've changed because of what I've been through. Frank is coughing up a storm that day, and Liesel doesn't see Frank again. Frank passed away. Liesel grows up, finds the doll in the attic once she's an adult. It's like coming apart. She finds another note inside the doll, like in its seams or something like that. And it basically says,
you were supposed to find this so much sooner. I expected you to like saw trap this doll.
It basically said that like the doll got lost, and lots of things get lost like over time, but like the love associated with them will stay. I listened to this episode the day after going to the memorial for my great uncle and performing my own little eulogy there. So as I was listening to this, I was kind of like, oh, please don't let this go where I think it's going. It did not make me cry, but it made me feel a lot of things. I was like, on one hand, this isn't the best timing for me to be listening to this, but on the other hand, I'm glad I did it.
It's like, I wonder...
after and not before.
I wonder what's going to happen to Frank, as with each passing scene in the montage, he is, like, coughing heavier and heavier in, like, oblique fashion.
Yeah, so this one was very cute. I liked it a lot. The last letter, or the second to last letter, got to me a little bit. Where it's just like, I've changed, but I'm still the same because I was like, ah. Also, he taught her how to read. There's so many fanfics, and by so many, I mean, like, basically one or two memorable ones, where I've read where it's, like, found family, like, hanging out in a park together, getting to know each other, like, over time, hanging out in the park, and they made me think of this, or this made me think of those a little bit. But, yeah, this bit was real cute. It was very nice. I liked it a lot. Do you have anything...
well, we'll talk about it
before I go to the next. Okay. I remember what it is. I remembered what it is. Okay. So this one is, they were like, sometimes they're like, this one's going to be true. And sometimes, like, you gotta show love towards people, and then bad people in certain situations will react in a way. And I was thinking, like, they're not going to go with Nazis, are they? They did. And so it's this true story about this, like, little town, I guess.
An island, yes.
And I don't remember where it was located.
Zakynthos. It's an island in Greece.
Okay. And so this Nazi, like, general or someone like that came to the town and wanted a list of all the Jewish residents in the town, so that they could be taken to the work camps. And then, which I liked this bit, where the guy who was supposed to make the list, who was like the mayor or something like that, was just like, you mean death camps? And they were like, no, we mean work camps. And I was like, okay. And he was like, uh-huh. So he goes to the, like, I don't know,
the bishop.
Priest, the bishop, thank you. And the bishop...
It might have been an archdiocese, actually, but we'll just say
either
bishop.
Way, these two guys, the guy in charge of the church, and was the other guy the mayor?
Yes.
Okay. They make a list. They give it to the Nazi. The Nazi's like... I thought that the names on the list were just going to be, like, the Nazi's name, and that's it. And they're going to be like, screw you!
I had the same thought. And then they take them, and they're like, darn it, they tricked us. We should have read this list closer before we just...
He's like, I guess I have to send myself off to Auschwitz.
It's just, I'd look at it and it's just a drawing of a hand pointing back at me. It's a mirror. Me
thinking that was going to happen reminded me of this bit in the new Bungo book that came out, where it's like Chuyu's backstory, and then, like, a cop is interrogating him, and when he's like 16, and he's like, I need you to write down, like, the name of, like, all the Port Mafia officials and all this, like, top secret information. And she's like, okay, give me a pen. And then he just writes eat and then the S word, and then he slides it back to the cop, and the cop is like, you're not funny.
Folds it in half, creases it, slides it across, spins it around.
And then, because me and the majority of the other fandom read, like, the fan translations online, so the physical book just got, like, released by Yen Press in English, and we were just like, please let the line have been translated the same way in English, and it was still just as funny. But anyway, on the list that the Nazi is given, it says the name of the church guy, whatever his title is, and the mayor. And the Nazi was just like, why would you do this? And they're like, because if you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. And he's like, I don't know what to do. And then he leaves. And then nothing happens to anyone. And they were, I guess, safe for all of as safe as you can
They still went after the Jews, but they were able to delay the Nazis enough.
Yeah, they were able to, like, warn.
They were able to get
everyone.
They were able to evacuate everyone.
Yes.
And every one of them got out. And as you would have guessed, like I just said, by the way that they describe it at the end of it, it is a true story. And I'll put the link down in the description to the Wikipedia article, which is very short, but, there's references about the rescue of the Jews of Zakynthos. Well, you can just type it in. I just told you what it's called.
I didn't hear you. What is it?
Rescue of the Jews of Zakynthos.
Come on, Google. Rescue of the... I don't know how to spell this word, so I'm just going to assume I spell it perfectly.
Yeah, well, it should auto
Google's like, what are you talking
I mean, I just tried to put the name of the island by itself, and it auto-completed exactly what I wanted. Okay.
Not for me. Anyway.
Fine. I mean, I told you there's barely anything in the article.
No, it's fine. You don't have to. Let's keep talking. Oh, you did. That was so fast. It has an A in it.
So.
Okay, continue.
The name of the episode makes a little more sense now.
Bishop is what that guy was.
Oh, it was a bishop. Okay. Chrysostomus. Or whatever it was.
Chrysostomus.
Yeah.
And Mayor Lucas, but with a K.
It's Greek.
Carer and Bishop Chrysostomus.
So, the name of the episode makes a little more sense now once Wilson's like, I'm doing a podcast, which I think it's just one of those technology things that I think is funny about the development of this show over the ages. It's like we're doing a radio show, we're doing a TV show, and now we're doing a podcast because everyone has a podcast now. Like the
Imagine having a podcast. Loser.
So the conjugation is weird, which is what threw us before, because you'd expect it to sound singular unless it was something like knocks on wood. Even still, you'd expect it to be like knock on wood. So like hearing it before, it's like knocks on love. It's like, that's a weird conjugation. But I was like, it sounds from Wilson's intro, like you said, it's probably we're going to get more of these in the future, and it's going to be like a BTV thing where the title, we're going to swap out different topics with the same title structure, and then if they're like, yeah, literally sometime in the rest of this year, we're going to have Knox on Sacrifice. So, which is interesting because we've been getting BTV not that infrequently recently, so I don't know if we're still going to get BTV. I mean, we still have BTV and Kids Radio happening at the same time, so I don't know if we're going to have all of them together.
Variety show.
Yeah, so Will is in this episode as Mr. Sage, and like I said, I feel like this may be the last episode that they had in the bank for him. I was thrown by when I saw the episode art. I really thought that was supposed to be Wilson as the Sage, and even
I did too.
Even listening to the scene, I was like, it's weird that it's Wilson and Connie because the characters are Connie and Eugene, and it wasn't until I looked at like the art scrapbook that they were like, no, this is Connie and Eugene, and they just gave Eugene enough facial hair that I did not realize that it was him. They also showed...
I guess it kind of
they showed
face-wise looks like Eugene.
Yeah, an earlier version where they had the same clothes, but they were colored so that it matched the scheme of their normal clothes. Like the top shawl that Mrs. Shrew was wearing was green, and Eugene's robe was like white with like purple vestments over the front and stuff like that. And it was extremely like much more recognizable, but they were like, they can tell who it is. We'll give him whatever colors.
No, we can't.
Then I thought it was Wilson.
I thought it was Wilson too.
I'm glad that it wasn't just me. Okay, so the first skit, I really liked the lesson. Like I said, about how your love is in your actions and not just your feelings, and how fake it till you make it applies to your feelings toward others, and that love can be a discipline and a labor. But, like you said, I also really love that Mr. Sage specifically asked right at the start if Mrs. Shrew was being abused physically, mentally, emotionally, to know if he should try and fix the relationship or whether he really should be getting her out of there right away. Obviously, a lot of Christian media, especially Focus, given their name, like it leans very heavily on the idea that you can overcome any obstacle in a marriage, and divorce or separation isn't ever the right answer. I don't know if it's nowadays, if it's leaned on as that much of like an absolute, but if we look back at Wit's Visitor, the very first family portrait to come out, they really hammer this idea when Whit and Tom say to each other that like I don't think there's any good reason for parents to separate. Back in my day, you just stuck it out and you made it work because it's always better for the kids.
Back in my day, you would let your husband and or wife murder you.
Yeah, Tom says, like, I know the experts say that it can be better for the kid, like, if you separate, depending on the environment. But I don't think that's true.
This is why Tom had to leave the show. This is why he was banished.
That's why they canceled him.
This is why Tom got canceled and Becky's in charge of the farm now.
So I was glad that this episode made that clarification where it's like, make sure that you're not actually in danger, that you're not being abused in any way, physical or emotional. And once it's like, okay, no, then I am going to try and help you guys and try and salvage your marriage. And not necessarily even in a way where I'm saying, like, this is what we're going to do, like, we're going to fix it. But I'm going to try this thing, which, I mean, in his plan, it wasn't like, try this thing, and if it doesn't work, then come back to me and I'll help you end it. His plan involved the ending of it. So if it didn't work out, then his plan already wouldn't automatically go to the contingency of, okay, we will end this then. So it wasn't even like, okay, you're not being abused, so you need to stay in it. You're going to work till you fix it. It was like, okay, go back and try this to fix it. And if it works, then great. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't.
Can I just say, I think there are times where, like, you aren't being abused and you're in a relationship with someone, but you should maybe still separate just because it's just,
well, yeah,
not working. Like, if both of you just don't like each other.
Well, and this episode covered that, right? Because he said, like, go in, try this for a bit, and then after that period, then separate. So in his scenario, if they tried it and they tried to work on it and it didn't work, then they would have separated.
That's true. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really glad that he made that immediate, like, oh, if this is actually a bad situation, like, we're going to pull the ripcord right now because I don't want to send you back into an unsafe situation. Don't think, oh, I can fix him in that scenario, or, oh, it would be wrong for me to leave, so I have to stick it out. And so I'm really glad that they put that in there.
Yeah, I remember I was listening to that, I paused, I was like, hold on.
Yeah.
Is Odyssey just, like, on it right now?
And, I mean, this is a much more obvious thing, but I still think this is funny as another, like, oh, this line is clearly put in there. In the next story with Liesl and Frank, it begins with him helping her look for Brune in the park, and Wilson's story makes this very specific note that Frank helped Liesl search for Brune in the park for the rest of the day while staying in clear line of sight of Liesl's mother. And I thought it was very funny that he puts in this note to specifically clarify that this old man did not just kidnap this little girl without their mother knowing what was going on. Yeah, and then the last story I liked finding out, like, oh, this is true. This is actually what happened there. And it also, that, you know, they show the mayor and the bishop, they showed, like, hey, we care for everyone, and I'm going to come down on hard for you, and we're going to explore all the legal options that we have because these are Greek citizens and stuff like that, like, you can't do this. Try everything you can to get around it.
The bit where the Nazi was just like, you're not even Jewish. And they were just like, does that matter? And the Nazi was like, yeah. And then they're just like, so when God was like, love everyone, they're like, except for Jewish people. And the Nazi was like, I need to talk to my leader.
It's really funny that they put their names on the list, since one of them was literally the bishop of the Greek church. And he's like, and I am also Jewish. And they're like, no, you're not. And he's like, you can't prove that.
Newsflash, I've been Jewish this whole time.
I like it because, you know, they showed, like, oh, we're trying to plead to you, but it also wasn't one of those stories where, like, and they really changed his mind. It's like, no, I mean, they certainly caught him off guard, but ultimately it's not like, you know, he became a good guy because he was a Nazi. It was their doing that saved everyone, and it's not like, you know, they convinced him that what he was doing was wrong, but they did certainly show, like, that.
You still haven't seen Jojo Rabbit, have you?
I have not. So it's good, and I was happy to, you know, because it's such a fantastic ending where they're like, every single Jewish citizen made it off the island without getting captured.
There was something about this last bit. I don't remember what it was, and I don't want to go into details because you haven't seen Jojo Rabbit, but it reminded me of something in Jojo Rabbit. I don't remember what it was, though, now.
And, so Wilson says that they got the award. I'm trying to remember, because it details it on the Wikipedia page here. The Yad Vashem.
Actually, it was...
Which
funny enough
honors it's the highest honor that can be given to non-Jews who risked their own lives in order to save Jews during the Holocaust, and so that was presented to the mayor and the bishop.
The funny thing about this episode, and people who have seen Jojo Rabbit will probably know what I'm talking about, is out of the 3 skits, the one that made me think of Jojo Rabbit was not the one that had Nazis. It was the second one. It was the letters being sent in the second one, being like, hey, this is going on here, blah, 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 blah. And, like, one person just, like, writing these fake letters because they really care about the other person. And I was like, oh, it's like Jojo Rabbit.
When the story began, and they were like, I don't remember what year they said, but they were like, he's walking the park, and he was Frank, and she was Liesel. And I was like, are these real people? Is this one of those, like, and that man was Albert Frank Einstein at the end or something like that.
And that man was Alexander Graham Liesel Bell.
Yeah. I don't think it was a true story, but definitely for the first part of that, I was like, this is one of those stories that can turn out to be true, and you've heard of the person, and it's going to be like a gotcha when you realize who they actually are.
In fact, I was kind of surprised that the last one was true, but they said the last one is a true story as soon as it started.
I don't remember.
I think they did.
The web doc, it looked at Puppet Bob as he traveled all around the world, like Liesel's doll, using a green screen. And then one of the pastors talked about love, and then a recent Focus intern talked about how she fell in love with her husband, and then she was like, here's how we proposed and got married.
Did you see that tweet I sent you the other day where someone wrote, like, will you marry me in the sand?
In the sand, yes, I saw
and she took a selfie with it, and she was like, I'm going to ruin some couple's day that goes down to the beach.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people do that in all different ways before,
really
right?
Funny. That's really mean, but
people
really
always
fun.
make that
I would
joke
do something like that.
With skywriting, because then, like, all different people will see it.
And that's smart. That's so smart. Oh my gosh,
like,
how much
even
does
if you aren't
skywriting
actually
cost?
doing it for someone, other people in different places will still see it.
That's so... Do you think anyone's ever seen something like that? They're like, actually, I do want to propose. And then they do.
And they piggy bank off of it. They're like, yes, it was magnanimous.
They're like, actually, I did do that.
Probably. I imagine it's also possible that someone saw that and thought it was for them, and then the person was too awkward to say no, and then they just were like, yep, and then they got married.
I hope not. Okay, I don't have much to say, and I gotta go.
Okay.
So, final thoughts.
So,
ranking, I don't know, first? Or second, third, first for me.
Oh, for the skits.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say...
And I'm gonna give it a solid 4...
I'm gonna give it a 4.8. I really like a lot of the points that they made and, like, the things that they emphasized in the themes. I like that the last story was true because it's a cool story I'd never heard of before. Mm-hmm. And I am gonna say I liked maybe it's just 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
They have different things.
I guess the things you pointed out with one kind of negate the problems I had with it. The fact that she still would have divorced him, like, if she really didn't connect with him, but then she did.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if she went through on that part of it, it would have been in, like, especially cruel fashion, because the plan was also, like, get him to this emotional point and then break his heart.
Which honestly was kind of funny. Yeah, I'm going to go 4.5. There was, like, one thing recently. I don't remember what it was. It might have been, like, an Odyssey episode, or it was, like, a description for something. Probably something we've done already. but like an episode was going to start, maybe it was this, I don't know, where a character was just like, we're going to tell you a story, one you might be a little familiar with, but in a little bit of a different way. And I was just like, guys, last time you said that, it was Count of Monte Cristo, and it didn't end well for you.
I think you might be thinking of Pinocchio, the tale of
No,
puppet.
It wasn't Pinocchio, because it was more recent than that. I don't remember.
It was probably when we just did, I guess, are you thinking of the Dickens one, maybe?
Maybe? No, I think
that was the last
else.
big whole literary thing that we did.
Then I don't know what it was. Okay. Anyway, I gotta go. I'm hungry. Okay. So, next time. Oh, wait, no.
Not next time.
Second episode.
We're going right now into talking about Results May Vary, which this was the May episode, and now this is Results May Vary, not Results June Vary.
What?
Because the episode title has the word May in it, but they made it the June episode. It was 1 month away from coming out in May, and they were like...
Oh, why did they do... Okay. Next time.
Anyways, that's what we're talking about right now, so let's talk about that now. So, now let's talk about episode 939. Results May Vary, written by Marshall Younger. What happens?
So, I think I finally have all the Calhoun's names down. Except for I need a reminder on their dad's name real quick.
Joseph.
Thank you. Okay, so this episode is Trey-centric.
Yes.
So,
Centric, if you will.
Okay, so this episode is the Calhouns and some other people going on a mission trip together.
To where? To the Dominican Republic.
Thank you. And there's definitely a charity of the month for
it's
this one. I don't remember what it's called.
It's a health. It was like GHO Global Health No, it's not. It was like Global Health. It was GHO. It was Global Health Outreach.
NIHM.
Yes. National Institute of Health.
Right? Yeah, that's right. No, I have to always go like National Institute of Mental Health to like remember the letters.
Although technically, it's in real life, it's like you would just say the National Institute of Health, and within that, it's not called NIM really in real life. It's like
I remember when I was little, and you were something else. I think it was Odyssey or something. Mentioned like the National Institute of Mental Health. It was probably Eugene Returns.
It is Eugene Returns because Dr. Foster works for the NIH.
And then I was like, that's crazy that like they came up with the same name or something like that. And you're just like, NIM is a real place. And I was like, no, it can't be real. I was so
Well, it's funny because, I mean, it's like I said, it's not called that. When I was little, when I'd look up like NIM, and the thing that comes up is batteries, because it's like nickel something.
Nickel,
batteries.
Iron, hydrogen.
The Ni
metal.
Is nickel, Victoria. Ni is the abbreviation for nickel. It's like nickel. There is no MH element. It's like nickel, magnesium, or something elements.
Do you ever feel
H is just the
smarter
proton.
than usual talking to me?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Victoria, that's not something people would normally know. I mean, if I go to Google, I type in NIM, the first autocomplete is National Institute of Mental Health, but the thing after that is NIM batteries.
I'm thinking NIM, but the song that's going through my head is like...
Okay, it's
R-U-S-C-U-D, Rescue to Society, and I touch the sky, you mean everything to me. Which is actually an organization about helping people. Not that the National Institute of Health isn't, it's just in the secret of NIM it isn't. Yeah. It's about murdering mice and stuff.
It's nickel metal hydride batteries. So, anyways,
That's what turned Martin evil.
What happened in Results May Vary, Victoria?
So they're going on a missions trip.
Yeah.
Not for NIM.
Not for NIM.
Not for NIM.
Just like the episode with Lucia. Not for NIM.
And Trey is... Since he's going on the trip, he finds out that there's this lady in the church who gave a very hefty donation. What was her name again?
Lucia Ortega.
Oh, okay. I thought it was Lucia, but
they
they
never
kept calling
called her. They never called her Lucia in the whole episode.
There was one point where I almost went like, man, I think that's Lucia, but then they're like Miss Ortega, and I was just like, maybe I was wrong.
That is Lucia's last name, yes.
That makes so much more sense.
Which, to be fair, I mean, I guess they didn't use it a lot at first. I guess in her later on episodes, like they'd use her full name more.
For some reason, my brain was like, Parker, except for that wouldn't be her last name.
No. I did also think it was odd that they never said her first name in the entire episode. Mm-hmm. At first, I was like, maybe I misheard, and it isn't even...
Is this the first time we've had art of what Lucia looks like?
I think so, because I saw it in the art. I was like, is that Lucia? Is that what she looks like? I don't think we've seen her before.
I'm going to look at the picture again.
And then also, like, I was like, maybe I misheard the name, or maybe it's a different Mrs. Ortega, but then we heard her voice, and I was like, okay, this is Lucia.
It's nice to see a picture of her.
Yeah. Well, you know, it is entirely reasonable that you didn't realize it's her, because, like you said, her last name isn't Parker. It doesn't get brought up all...
And there was, like, one point mid-episode where I was just like, wait, was that Lucia? And I was like, no, they would have said Lucia if it was her.
They rarely call her by her last name on the show, and this is probably the only episode she shows up in that none of the other Parkers do. So
so they basically she donates $100 because she wants like Trey to have like this really special experience. She's just like, I know you're gonna have like gonna leave a huge impact.
Not just like that she wants him to, but like she felt moved by the spirit that he was going to.
Yeah. And so then he feels like all of this pressure to like make a huge difference. We cut to them coming back from the trip.
I was surprised by that.
I was surprised too. So
I was so confused because they were like, oh, we're at the airport now. And they're talking about like, oh, do we get all of our luggage? And I was like, out of your car? And
I'm going to talk about this a bit more later in more detail, because this was very much a part of my listening experience for this episode and the next episode. But I listened to both of these episodes the day after I got my hair done and my car started like messing up. So because of that, I had to be driven to and from work in Nelson. So Mom was with me in the car. So she heard this episode on the way to Nelson and the next OAC episode on the way back from Nelson.
Okay.
So her and I were talking about the episodes the entire time, and both of us were just like, wait, they're back?
Oh, so you have your own side podcast, your super secret, exclusive two-person podcast.
Yeah, only the birds that fly by the car get to listen to.
That have really good hearing.
Yeah. And the elk that Mom apparently saw on her drive back home before going into Thrums. Which made her very excited. She was like, Victoria, it was a female elk and didn't have antlers like Edith. She was so happy.
Like
it
Edith
was very
the elk.
Cute. It was very wholesome. Okay, so they come back from the trip. All of them had a very good time, except for Trey, who didn't really get along with anyone. We will talk about that more later. They were all avoiding him to comical lengths.
At first, it's like, oh, he felt bad because he didn't feel like he really made a difference. And then he starts describing things, and it's like, surely he's exaggerating, and this is all in his head.
If anything, he was under-exaggerating.
And then as the episode keeps on going on, and you find out just how, like, terribly it was really true and not in his head that everyone hated him.
It was so bad. Me and Mom were just like, oh no. They're all asked by Wilson to I
was like, do they even have crocodiles in the Dominican Republic? And I found out from the web quest, it's like, it has like the highest per capita number of crocodiles in freshwater crocodiles in the world, or something like that.
So Wilson asks them all to say something about the trip in front of the church, about their impact.
Genshin.
Joseph talks about this man named... I was literally just thinking of his name. What was it?
Moses,
thank you. Who... His legs were, I think, amputated at the knee because of a farming accident. And he was like always smiling. Every morning he woke up, he like thanked God that he was alive. and he was just like such a nice like influence on the community. Joseph talks about other things, and then we have Kayla talking. We get to hear her talk too, I think, about like this girl who got like these glasses that were like the exact type she needed.
Like we said, it was a medical thing, and that's why, Joseph was on the trip. So they were doing like medical stuff. Presumably Ava was also on the trip, I imagine.
And to which Mom made me pause the episode because I gave like a really quick description of the fact that like this is the new family. These are like the deals with all the characters. And then she made me pause. She was just like, what did you say she did again as a job? And I was like, she's a meteorologist. She's like, are you sure she's not like an optometrist or something? And
she said she was helping out.
I was just like, I am very, very sure she's not. And she's like, why is she talking about glasses? I was like, because she is.
She was going to go volunteer tell the weather for them, Mom?
But I was just like, there are actual episodes dedicated
to medical
her
charity
being on the Weather Channel.
Yeah, you're like, listen, she's a meteorologist. She is a scientist. It's a real job. I've heard her that one broadcast 4 times that she did about the blizzard.
So then we have Cooper talking about how he would like play baseball with all the kids and how he got along with them really well.
And he was mildly okay at sports, it turns out.
And I like Cooper a lot. He's fun.
He's fun.
Just like the fact that he was just a very positive influence on the community and just like a people for all the kids he was playing the games with to like talk to and stuff, which is really nice. And then Trey talks.
He sure does, doesn't he?
Mom was so uncomfortable. It was so funny to watch. She was just like, oh no. She had like one hand over her mouth, like just shaking her head, like hands on the steering wheel. She was like, this is really bad. It was so funny. I love listening to new episodes with Mom. It's so funny. And she was just like, he finished it. She was like, that was bad. And I was like, thank you, Mom.
I love being able to get Mom's feedback on a new episode, especially secondhand.
Also, she laughed so hard at like all the sibling dynamic stuff between Cooper and Trey. It was really funny. And
it felt very older, younger sibling realistic. Like at the beginning, Cooper like flipping Trey out of the bed, but then later when Trey's like, I'm gonna flip you out of the bed if you don't get up, and Cooper's
you and I have
and
done
Cooper
that
being
exact
like, oh,
same
and he's like,
type of thing before.
Yeah, I'm not strong enough to do that.
And do you say you're not strong?
No, that's what he said. Like, I loved that, like him trying to flip it, and then Cooper being like, oh, and he's like,
I've done that exact same thing before.
Yeah,
I
can't do that.
And it also is very reminiscent of Jimmy's whole like time to wake up. Time to wake up. Which Devin and I have done to each other quite a few times.
Anytime one of us has to wake the other up, we always do that.
Yeah. Especially when we were living together.
Well, I mean, it's hard to do when we're not in the same place.
I feel like there's maybe been a time before. There have been times before where you've called me to wake me up and you've been like, time to wake up.
That's true. I have done that. You're correct. You are absolutely right.
Yeah. Which I've done that to you too before. I don't know if I've ever done it over the phone, but I definitely have done it in person.
Yeah, it's your second most quoted Jimmy line behind, do you agree?
Do you agree? Good, go fix it. And then my third is like, open this can with my teeth.
Oh, Thanksgiving at home.
Which I have a really bad habit of quoting that one around people who are not Odyssey fans, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna explain this real quick.
I hate it every time you're like, you ask me if I agree, because I'm like, I have to say yes, and I know what you're gonna say, but like,
I always do it in situations where you don't want to say yes, and then you have to, because I'm a master.
Yeah,
you gotta finish.
I hate walking into it and being like, yeah, especially because it's always a context where good, now go fix it doesn't make sense, and I know you're gonna say it, and I have no way to avoid it. The illusion of choice meme.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Do you ever think there's anyone who watches our podcast who doesn't have siblings or doesn't see siblings interact a lot and they're like...
Statistically, probably.
This is what it's like.
This is why I'm glad I'm an only child. This seems like so complicated.
The siblings in the wild.
This is so complicated. It's like...
Watch how they banter. Watch how they make each other slightly more angry than they were a second before.
All the jokes and references that we make on top of all the, like, just references to popular media and memes and stuff that we're constantly making.
Literally this podcast is literally impossible to understand 100%. Unless
anyone other
you are
than us.
Either of us, or sometimes even just me, or sometimes just you, or sometimes neither of us.
Yeah.
Because there have been times before where I've shown you something off camera, or typed something in the chat, and I rewatch, and I'm like, I don't know what that is, and I don't remember. And then I'm always like, do you remember? And you're like, no, I don't. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's lost to time.
It's like that one tweet where the lady's like, I went on a date with this guy and I referenced a meme and he didn't know what I was talking about, so I showed him a picture on my phone and he was like, what, so I'm just supposed to memorize all these little pictures on your phone so I can have a conversation with you?
I remember that. And the answer is yes.
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 I see that and
that's
I'm like, that's what it's like being friends, not just with me. That's what it's like when I'm friends with someone and they're into something that I'm not into. And it's like, yes, I will still, like, through osmosis, actively learn the names of all these characters so I can have a conversation with you.
Yeah, it's like how I sent that Walter White Genshin video to you guys.
Yeah, it's like how I know the names of, like, all of the wizards in Mahoyaku so that I can talk about it with Alex.
I don't even know what Mahoyaku means.
Anyway.
I know that the main character in Genshin is named... Oh, I'm gonna be wrong. I think this is a love interest, actually. Oh, you're gonna tell Alex.
It's not a romance game.
I'm not gonna pronounce the name right. It's not a romance game?
No, there's no romancing characters. It's an RPG.
What?
It's a beat 'em up, like fighting open world RPG.
Yeah, but I thought you could still romance. Okay.
No, I mean you go on quests with the characters, but there's no romancing.
Crazy.
It's just that the characters are hot, so.
Childy.
Child.
Chide.
Child is a main character. He is not, like, the playable character.
Okay.
I mean, technically you can play as any character you draw, but...
Is Child... There's one guy I always see...
He's the redheaded guy.
Yeah. He's hot.
Yes.
Anyway, let's get back to Odyssey.
Anyways.
So, Trey is a failure. That's where we left off.
Yes.
And,
well, that doesn't narrow it down.
He starts getting up early and making breakfast for his family, and, kind of just, like, changes his whole attitude on a lot of things. He's also trying to, like, make some money because he feels bad.
Yeah, I mean, I misread all of his actions until he explained it at the end. I thought all of his actions were also to try and make up for his perceived, like, lack of difference that he made.
I think you're supposed to think that possibly your first
I would imagine so. I mean, it certainly seems like that. Since, like you said, he's doing it in conjunction with trying to make money to pay Lucia back, which he would only know about if Cooper, hadn't been snooping at how much money people were putting into the offering.
Cooper kind of is the worst, but also the best, and I love him. And Cooper is almost like a non-malicious Rodney in some ways.
Interesting take.
Like the big ego.
Uh-huh.
Like, he does have, like, the skills to back it up in lots of ways Rodney never did.
Yeah, I was going to say, Rodney's not exactly a sports hero.
No, but, like, the kind of comedic relief, just, like, ego level is very Rodney-ish. I would say.
I could see that.
Like, I could see Rodney making a PowerPoint about himself to just, like, brag. Couldn't you?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I would attribute that more to Jay than Rodney, but...
I just miss Rodney. So
he's trying to do all the stuff.
The thing with Jay is his ego is actually so weak and frail once you, like, break it down even a teeny bit. Yeah. And, like, Rodney's isn't that weak.
Yeah, I feel like Rodney may actually be that secure about himself. Contrary to what they always try and tell you about bullies, I think Rodney actually probably does think that highly of himself.
Yeah, I do too. And yeah, the only time where Rodney ever has, like, ego, like,
crisis
self-esteem
is darkness
issues
before dawn.
Are, like, when it has to do with Bart.
Oh, that's true. I was going to say, like, when Jellyfish steals the gang and he almost, like, cries about it.
No, like, when it's something very, very personal. Like, when it's the Bones or when it's Bart. Or anything to do with Doris. I don't really think anything ever has happened with Doris, but, like, if something did, like, he would definitely...
She hit him with the broom that one time, but that's about it.
She did hit him with the broom, but that wasn't, like, someone going after her or anything like that.
Yeah.
He was also kind of upset when it came to, like, Donna and Aloha Oi, but I'd also say that was more personal, so... when it's people he's actually trying to connect to in a certain way, and then something happens with them, that's when he's hurt. Anyway, he is trying to make things up. He gets this, like, Wilson comes to their door as he's explaining, like, what is going on and stuff to his parents. Wilson says, like, this email was, like, sent to him, and it mentioned Trey, and it hasn't been translated. Nice. To which me and Mom both said, oh no, it's going to be awful and full of insults.
Dear Mr. Barkley, you may have already won $100,000.
Mom basically had... Mom and I basically had the same reaction where we were like, what if it's horrible? You should probably translate that yourself, Wilson, just to check it out and make sure it's like...
I'll be honest. I mean, I don't speak Spanish, really. But I feel like the length of the letter combined... I mean, maybe it just had his name on the outside. Maybe it was in an envelope and they hadn't opened yet. I feel like if you looked at it without translating it, which I guess they must have looked at it because they knew it was in Spanish.
It was an email, though, not a letter. And you printed
it out. That's true. Anyways, they'd seen it because they knew it was in Spanish. So the length of it, and I feel like in such a short space, there would be enough words that would jump out at you. Like, I don't know what headphones is in Spanish.
Maybe Wilson just saw, like, Trey's name and he's just like, I shouldn't read this. It's personal.
I feel like even Trey, though, right? I feel like any of them looking at it should have picked up enough, like, 2 or 3 words in the 2 sentences of the letter to be like, oh, this isn't an emotionally moving story.
I don't think Trey really looked at it before giving it to Lucia.
Yeah. Lucia should have just lied about the letter.
So Mom was like, what if it's something horrible? You should have figured it out.
What if it was worse and Lucia lied to soften the blow?
And then the entire time, like, waiting for Lucia to read it, Mom and I kept on coming up with different versions of the email, which were basically just like, you're the worst person I've ever met. Like, I hope you never come back to the Dominican Republic. It's like, I thought all these other people were bad, but you're somehow worse. And just, like, all these really mean things.
We've banned you from crossing our borders.
I think one of the things I said was, like, the crocodiles were a mercy compared to you or something like that.
What, is it The Last I Do? Where Trent is imagining it was like, and now I've also framed you for robbing the bank as well.
I don't...
What episode is that where someone's imagining that?
Are you thinking of Max? Or Mandy, who would have said that to him? Like, who said that to him?
No, it was, like, his imagination in that episode or something. It was like, oh, they're going to, like, get back at me. They're going to rob a bank, and they're going to pin it on me, and then I'm going to go to jail forever.
I don't remember. But,
wasn't The Last I Do, but...
Man, I miss Max. I wish he was in more episodes at the time. Mandy too, but we've talked about that a lot over time. So the letter is read. I was very quiet. I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then I was quiet for a second. I was like, that was somehow worse than all the insults that we came up with. Because it's just like, dear Trey, I can't find my headphones. I noticed we have a matching pair. Did you accidentally take mine? And then they're like, Lucia's like, well, Trey, did you take his headphones?
Tell me. She grabs the kitchen lamp and, like, shines it on his face.
And Trey's just like, no, I didn't take his headphones. And then...
the way that she asked it, too, was so funny.
Yeah.
So inquisitively, like, well, did you?
So
yes,
then he
'twas
starts
I.
apologizing. He gives her $15. He's like, I don't have enough money to fully pay you back, but I'll do it slowly over time. He's like, I'm going to pay you in installments. I think Mom went like, oh. It's something like that. It's just like, oh, this is episode. Just like, oh no, this boy. And then Lucia's just like, I paid because I wanted you to go on the trip, because sometimes not only are you like influencing the people around you, they're also influencing you, and sometimes they can leave a bigger influence on you than you leave on them. Which is the moment, like, I thought this episode was good up until this point, but it was a lot like the Wooten comic, The Way of the Comic Book that we just listened to, where, like, once it actually starts, like, explaining what it's trying to do, it, like, grabs me, and I'm like, oh, this is good. And so then he's just like, actually, yeah, the reason why I've been acting so different partially lately is because I've been thinking of Moses, and I've been just, like, thankful every day that I wake up, and I've been waking up earlier, I've been helping out more around the house, I've been spending, like, more time with my family, I've been more positive.
And also because of the non-denominational guilt.
Yeah, and...
because we're not Catholic, so you can't have Catholic guilt.
And, yeah, and she's like, and that's nice, and that's why I wanted you to, like, go on the trip. I wanted you to have this good experience. And then, the family, the Calhouns, do, like, a little presentation just for each other on, like, slideshow of their trip and their own experiences. Cooper shows, like, him in victory poses, like, being thrown in the air after winning, like, baseball games. And he's like, I am a hero and an icon. Mom was like, oh, brother. And then, Trey shows, like, a picture of Moses, and he's like, and he left, like, a really good impact on me and stuff, and I want to be, like, a better person and more appreciative of life. And it was a nice episode.
I think it's interesting that you compared it that way to the way of the comic book, because I felt like the emphasis in the first half of the episode was the thing I found the most unique about it, because the kind of final tying together theme of, like, oh, when you go on a trip like that, like, it's as much, about the impact it has on you as the impact you have on others. Is
because, like, I've seen a lot of people go on, like, trips and then just come back, like, very much impacted by
I just mean because I feel like that's something we've covered, like, so many times before.
I just thought this was, like, a neat way of covering it, not showing the trip at all.
Yeah, I do think that was interesting. Yeah, I feel like we've covered the idea, like, tons of times of, like, oh, you go on a trip and, like, you get, radically changed, and it's just as much about how it impacts you as how you impact the others. And the word impact was said way too many times in this episode. But the thing that kind of hooked me in a way that I found the most unique about how it was done in this episode specifically was, like, in the first half, I guess, like, the way the pressure and the guilt, especially, like, the pressure beforehand that Trey was feeling because of the expectations that Lucia put on him. It has been a while since she showed up.
I will say she also apologized.
Exciting, yeah.
For that.
I'm excited that Lucia's there. It's very sweet that he asked Lucia to read the letter for him. Mm-hmm. Even though
because I thought, Mom also thought Lucia was at the door when someone knocked on the door.
I
knew it was Wilson.
I also did.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was, like, her to, like, ask for
her money back
about the trip.
I thought she was going to come to ask Trey more questions. Yes, also.
Or she was just straight up there to apologize in the first place.
So, like I said, Lucia, when she read the letter, it had the exact same, like, meaning, the same syntax and words as Dear Mr. Barkley. At least my fans are classy. Dear Mr. Barkley, you may have already won $10,000 just to fix the seal. But
what episode was that from again?
And the Glory. When Lawrence and Jimmy are doing the baseball announcements, and everyone loves Lawrence, and Jimmy doesn't get any fan mail except for the one letter.
Right.
It's just spam. Which I think about all the time. So funny. Great comedic timing. At least my fans are classy. So same words when she read that letter could not have had a more different energy to it, because this was so much more depressing than the very comedic scene of that episode. Let's have a moment of silence for the American troops in Canada.
I do sincerely think it's more depressing and worse, the letter just being so indifferent than being angry.
It's so nothing.
Like, it's so little of, like, even if he was
I don't
angry,
even care enough
it'd be
about
like,
you to...
you left an impact on me in some way.
You didn't
it's
even
just
leave
like, the only thing that left an impact on me is that I can't find my headphones. It's like, oh my
like,
God.
I couldn't even leave a bad impact on someone. Like, I'm that ephemeral to them. Anyway, so the thing that I really liked about this episode was I feel like it goes under the same umbrella as Preacher's Kid in album 23, and even Pamela Has a Problem, in that it doesn't just address the way that service and volunteering are as impactful for the volunteer as for the recipient, but it's specifically looking at the pressure that gets placed on church kids, especially depending on, like, you know, like, are they a preacher's kid, or like, are they like one of the like super churchy kids, stuff like that, like the pressure and expectations.
Like, did they grow up in the church, or are they new to the church?
Yeah, or like, are you someone like goes there sometimes, or, you know, are you the preacher's kid? Are you the worship pastor's kids? The pressure and expectations that they get placed on you to, like, you're gonna do great and world-shattering work, and you will have lifelong impacts in ways that can feel like crushing responsibilities when you don't feel like you live up to the expectations that are placed on you, or at least the expectations that you think are placed on you. And I really like how this episode wasn't just about Trey feeling like he needed to make a difference because everyone else did and I didn't, so I feel like I came up with the feeling that I need to make a difference. It's because he was literally singled out as having an important difference that he was going to make, and so he felt paralyzed when he failed to live up to what he thought he was supposed to do. And that is so, so real. So I like that it wasn't just like, I got it in my head that this is what I need to do. But it was like, you know, how the actions and the words of other people can, like, put that pressure on you and make you feel like, oh, I had a feeling, I had a prophetic word, I had, like, you know, this weight on my heart that said, like, you're going to do all of these things, and now it's going to happen, or we'll hate you forever.
I also really felt that second half where it was just, like, everyone being like, I went through all this stuff, I did all these things, and you're just like, I
was there also.
I was sure standing there.
Yeah, and that's hard, especially since he was talking to each person. It's hard when you feel like, oh, these people had this crazy story. Yeah, and then they're just like,
story. What did you do? Because, like, lots of places do that. They're like, everyone individually talk about what you did. I mean, lots of places, at least, like, New Life, only, from what I've seen in the past several years, like, if you know you want to say something.
Yeah, volunteer. If you
know,
have
like,
something to share, then share it.
And you're good, you can go up and say, because I remember, like, when I was little, sometimes they'd be like, everyone want to say one individual thing, and you'd be like,
Yeah, this isn't high school. You can't just be like, I'm gonna call on everyone, and you have to answer when I call your name. So yeah, and I'm glad that Lucia recognized that, and also Wilson recognized that too, and he was like, I shouldn't have, like, you know, even though I didn't see it that way, I realize now that it could feel like an ambush when it's like, oh, you don't know what the questions are in advance. You weren't expecting to have to, like, answer this. I should have gone over in advance and, like, seen if you were comfortable answering these questions and stuff like that, so you wouldn't feel so put on the spot in front of everyone. So I really appreciated that they were like, oh, that was our bad, like, in those respects. I think was pretty cool. The web doc is about baseball. That's the main thing. They're like, hey, baseball's in this episode, so that's what we're going to do.
Not the charity of the month?
Well, there's some stuff for that. I mean, there's always the thing Bob is doing, right? He's playing baseball. With regards to medical missions, Bob says, it's easy to take healthcare for granted, isn't it? And I was like, that may be the single funniest thing I've ever heard an American say.
I've never heard an American say that before.
Yeah. I was like, look, I'm not one of those people who wants to, like, a clown on Americans because of the state of their country. There was a lot of things that suck there, and that is not the fault of, like, all the individual people who have to suffer through those things. I don't want to tease and bully them for that because it sucks. But it was a wild sentence to hear him say that and be like, well, that's not something you hear every day from a country with the most expensive healthcare in the world.
Mm-hmm. As an adult, I am very bad at knowing when a medical thing I go to costs money or not, because I don't have any, like, extended health at the moment. Whenever I do anything, I'm always just like, should I pay something? And then they're always just like, no. And I'm like, okay, thank you, bye.
It makes you feel better? Literally the exact same for me.
Okay.
Literally every time I go to do something, I had, like, you were talking about how you had to, like, get some tests done. A little while ago, like, I was getting some, like, tests done for, like, a checkup and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they're like, we need you to go to, like, this and that. They're like, we need you to, like, requisition these tests. And instead of the doctor doing the normal thing where they'd be like, okay, you have an appointment here and here or whatever, they were like, here's the forms that are asking for these, so just go get these done somewhere. I was like, anywhere specific? They're like, no, you can do them wherever. It was like a chest x-ray and blood work and something else. And they're like,
are you okay?
Yeah, like I said, it was just like a general thing.
Okay.
But they were like, go out and get these tests. And I was like, and they were specific? They're like, no, wherever. I was like, great, now I have to figure out where you get a chest x-ray from, I guess. And so I just went and Googled it. And I was like, I'm going to have to make an appointment, because I looked it up and I was like, I found places that can do these things, but there's no place that does all of them. So I'm going to have to make appointments at different places, and they're all going to be downtown, and it's going to take forever. This is going to be such a pain.
At least you have a car now.
I got them all done that same day without having to go very far. And none of them, they were all just walk-in things. It was insane. I looked it up, and they're like, here's a place downtown that was like a block away from where I was. They're like, we do chest x-rays, and it's walk-in appointments only. And I just, like, walked in. I was in there for 10 minutes. I, like, walked in, I waited 5 minutes, and they're like, okay, stand over there. They took the x-ray, and they're like, okay, that's good. We'll send the things to your doctor. I was like, okay, do I need to take a form? Do I need to pay anything? They're like, no, that's all covered. I was like, okay, thanks. And then I knew that I could get Life Labs to do the other one, and I was like, I can figure that out later, because there's 100,000 Life Labs in Vancouver. But when I came up the elevator, I saw that there was a Life Labs on the same floor of the building that I was on for the other place. So I just walked down the hallway and walked in, and I was like, hey, do you guys take walk-ins? And they were like, we do at certain times of the day, like right now, and there's no one in line. I was like, can you do these tests? They're like, yeah, we can do them right now. Just wait 10 minutes. And I was like, okay. It was the most unexpectedly easy adult thing I've ever had to do in my entire life, I think. Because, like, ratio of how easy it was. But yeah, none of those things costed anything. I feel like whenever I go in for something like that, that's more than just a normal doctor thing, or it's not an emergency room, you know, like it's a scheduled thing, or like these are businesses and not the hospital. Mm-hmm. Like you said, I was like, I imagine I probably have to pay for this. I have no idea. And I feel like in that situation, instead of asking, I'm just like, so I'm done. And they're like, yeah. And then I just kind of slowly start shuffling towards.
That's what I do. I always, like, whenever I did, like, my consultation like a month ago now. And then I'm just like, okay, can I go now? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, okay, bye. Then I always, like, linger by, like, walking slowly in front of, like,
I'm, like, by the front desk now, and I just start, like, slowly shuffling towards the door to see if anyone's going to stop me and ask me to pay for something. And then I get far enough, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm good. And then I'm gone.
There have been so many times where, like, I've gone to the walk-in place downtown, and then I just, like, talk to the receptionist. I come out, and I'm like, do I have pay anything? And they're like, were you told you had to pay anything? And I was like, I don't think so. And they're like, you would have been told. I'm like, oh, am I good? And they're like, yeah, you are. I'm like, okay, thank you, bye.
I'm so glad. I mean, it makes sense that you're the same way, that you don't know, but I always feel like that. I'm like, I should probably know this, but I absolutely don't. And I don't want to ask outright because I feel like the stories of when Americans go to other countries and they're like, money? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh, money.
When I was in...
We should probably wrap up.
High school. Yeah, real quick. I remember the first time I went into the walk-in place by myself, and I just, like, sat in there, and I was in there for, like, I don't know, 10 minutes or something, and the receptionist walked up to me and was just like, are you here for, like, a thing? And I was like, oh, yeah, I am. She's like, you're supposed to tell us if you are. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. I'm Victoria.
Yeah, the first time
that's how I found out you're supposed to say your name when you go into places.
Absolutely, the first time you go to the doctor or the dentist by yourself, and you're like, should I tell them I'm here? Should I just go sit down? Do they come to me? Is it like a restaurant? Do I wait to be seated?
You do that at blood tests. I found that out. They just call your name or something like that. So, yeah. My rule is if I can't see anyone I can talk to, then I'm just going to sit down and wait for something to happen.
Yeah, that's why usually if I go into a place like that, I'll like go and be like, hey, do I need to check in or should I just sit down?
Yeah. If I see someone, I'll be like, I'm here. And they're like, all right, sit down. I'm like, okay.
Exactly. Just tell them you're there and hope it doesn't come off as too weird.
Yeah,
if that's not
they're
what you're
usually like, okay,
do.
Fill out this form. And I'm like, I can do that.
Oh, that's the best feeling.
And then the form asks me all these questions and I'm like, do I have these things? I don't.
I love filling out easy forms because it's like, I'm taking a test and I know all the answers.
I don't know all the answers. They're like,
usually.
Do you have these problems? I'm like, do I have these problems?
Usually the first part of it, at least, depending on what the form is for, where it's like, hey, I know these answers. I know my name and my birthday and my address. This is so easy. I'm getting a good score in form filling, which is
something both normal to want
and possible to achieve.
Possible to achieve. Anyway,
yeah.
This episode good.
This episode is about medicine and healthcare, so it does fit.
Relevancy.
Yeah, that's totally relevant. I mean, hey, that gives me an easy thing to put in the description for my list of 3 that we haven't put on there before, which is healthcare. Or doctor's appointments. Sometimes it's hard to think of something to put in the please join us as we talk about A, B, and C in the description, because I try and always come up with something that we've discussed that has never been used in any past episode, and sometimes it's hard to come up with something.
You should send me your descriptions after you write them, because I like reading them because I think they're funny, and sometimes I click on the episodes just to see what their descriptions are.
All right, I can do that. Do you want the whole description or just that sentence of the description?
The whole thing.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess I'll just send you like the first paragraph because that's the only bit that's non-templated.
Yeah. The unique bit.
Yeah.
Anyway, because I don't know. I feel like I have told you before, but yeah, I like your descriptions.
I don't think you've told me that. Maybe you have. I don't remember.
I like your descriptions.
Thank you.
It's weird to think.
When I'm editing, I'm always like, I need to make sure, like, I need to, pay enough attention, obviously, to edit the episode, but I also need to pay the extra amount of attention, not be on autopilot enough that I can think of 3 things that are unique, but that we also talked about enough that it feels reasonable to put them in the description and that hopefully sound kind of engaging.
Healthcare. Trey's awful time.
Something in there. Something to do with
Lucia. Lucia, but not Lucia.
Mystery Ortega.
Mystery Ortega is what I call orangutans when I can't remember what they're called. It's weird to think, unless I get my hair done again in like 2 months or maybe even less than 2 months, I'm going to be half blonde.
That's weird.
Yeah. I didn't have my glasses on. I was like, I'm blonde.
That isn't something I can like picture.
It wasn't something I could picture until I saw my blurry reflection with my glasses off.
I mean, Mom.
And I was like, Whoa!
Mom was blonde when she was like a toddler, before her hair browned out more.
Because this hair is going to be forever bleached. Unless it gets cut.
So, I'm going to give this episode 4.7 out of 5. I like that we got to see Lucia outside of, just being Ava's mom. I like getting to see all the Calhouns in action. Like you said, there was a lot of good like sibling moments in this one that felt like particularly sibling-y, which is fun.
Sibling trademark.
Yeah. Ants.
I was listening to that song last night.
The Ant-Man trailer.
Oh, I was listening to the siblings.
Well, I know that's what I was doing, but then once I did this, then I switched to the ants.
Ant-Man.
Oh, good times. Anyways, and like I said, I like the fact that they took a theme that we've seen before and really combined it with like the church kid aspect of like the ways that adults can unknowingly and unintentionally place these expectations and pressures on you that they don't realize that they're doing, that, you feel like all this guilt and this tension and pressure that you have to live up to them. Which, like I said, we've had other episodes that have addressed it in different concerns. And, I like that is something that is addressed. I literally, in part, did my like hub on that at Reach years ago because I used that clip from Pamela Has a Problem when I did that, talking about like growing up as a church kid and how do you undo that on yourself enough to be someone who can like actually communicate meaningfully about your faith with other people.
I think I went to your hub.
Yeah, you did. Gabe was there. The twins were there.
Yeah.
Etc. I remember at least the twins said that it was were the ones who said it was their favorite hub of the whole weekend. And I was like, oh, that's so nice.
I think it's funny that you and I are the only ones who call them the twins.
Are we?
Yeah, basically.
I guess just because lots of people don't group them together. Is that why?
I always it's faster. More efficiency. Efficiency is what I'm after.
You have too many syllables. Anyways.
I'm going to give it a 5. I really liked it. I thought it was both a fun and relatable episode that, like, hit on some things we haven't really heard in this way before, which is always nice. It was nice for Lucia to be there. I feel like I'm getting to know the Calhouns way better. I actually, like, properly know their names now because of this episode, whereas before I was having like some trouble remembering their names on occasion, but now I actually can remember their names.
Trickiest thing for me is the fact that the Perkins and the Calhouns were introduced at the same time and their moms' names are Kayla and Carla.
Yeah.
So that it's like I have to say it with their last name. I need like the echoic memory to like associate which one is which. Like, oh, it's Kayla Calhoun and Carla Perkins.
This episode was just really good. It felt like one of those like really core Odyssey family episodes. Know what I mean? Like it felt like an old Parker episode or an old Washington episode.
An old Parker episode. It's not. Or. Yeah. I mean, you're right. But...
Or like an old Barkley episode.
Yeah, I mean, I did.
It was really good.
I was struck while doing it. I was like, this is a core family episode. We got the whole family in here doing family things as a family together.
I really liked it. I don't know if you're making fun of me or...
No, I mean it.
Like, I think you're being serious.
I had that thought where I was like, yeah, we got all 4 of them, and it's mostly the 4 of them interacting with each other as like a core, like a family, like you said, like the Parkers, the Washingtons, the Strauss, not usually the Strasburgs, but yeah, the Barkleys.
The Barkleys. And I definitely got more like Barkley Washington vibes from this episode. than like other families, which made it in a way almost feel kind of nostalgic on certain levels when it came to like the family banter for me, which definitely really endeared me to the episode, like I mentioned with like the waking the sibling up
yeah,
kind of
I did feel like Marvin Tamika banter in like some of the arguments between Cooper and Trey.
Yeah, and it was just, it felt nice. I liked it a lot. Yeah, this episode was really good. It had so many really funny lines. Like he jumped into the water to avoid
and
me.
It had
and it's
crocodiles.
Like, that's not that bad. That's where the crocodiles are. It was so funny. And it was like, oh, this like deaf boy, because he didn't have any friends, but then he didn't want to sit beside me anymore because he thought I was lame.
It was funny how it all sounded like it was going to be like paranoia and hyperbole, but they're all like, yeah, no, those things did happen.
Yeah, and they're like, same thing, and then he got the letter, and it's just like...
And all of Cooper's...
Like, oh, honey.
All of Cooper's stories also sounded like hyperbole in the opposite direction, but they're like, no, they really did carry you on their shoulders cheering for 6 games in a row of baseball.
This is so funny.
And they did draw a picture of you where Cooper's wearing a crown and Trey is pigsty.
He's like 3 feet shorter than him, and they have like the photos to back it up in the slideshow.
Yeah, it was
and
good.
the music, he had like the victory music and the slideshow. It was good. Anyway, that's it.
You can take food out of the fridge.
That's it for today. It's time to end. Yeah, so, Alex is saying it's time to end.
Exactly. This is the end of the episode.
Anyways, this is the end of the episode.
Telling you to cook. Alex, we have to cook. Speaking of Bryan Cranston and Genshin Impact.
No, literally, I forgot I have a tiny bit of leftover Chinese food. I'll finish this.
So, what are we talking about next episode, Victoria?
The next Odyssey episode.
No, we talked about evening and last time. It's the next episode.
Oh, Dawn. No, we already got Dawn.
Mid-morning. And late morning.
11sies. Second breakfast and 11sies. Let's go.
And high tea. Yeah, we'll be wrapping up album 73 next time. We'll be closing up the last, I don't know, probably 5 hours out of the 20.
Jillian better stay on the show.
I believe in Kathy. Okay.
Me too.
All right. So that's what we're talking about next time. Until
the chairman is Jillian's dad. Last prediction. Okay.
Until then, thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, I forgot to mention it. I did think at one point, is this like a really weird like razz on Jason because they know Jillian likes Jason and she actually is like the chairman's daughter, and they're like, does Jason deserve Jillian? The answer is no, but they're gonna be together anyway. Anyway, hopefully y'all have listened to 73.
Yeah. Thanks for watching. Blah 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 blah. Goodbye.
Goodbye.